Education is a vital instrument in the development of an individual and helps them grow in the society they live in. People are constantly learning new things and applying them to their way of life. Education provides children with knowledge and skills and is the foundation of what they will become in the future. In an effort to improve education and challenge students to perform better on their standardized tests, the No Child Left Behind Act was passed. The act was proposed by George W. Bush in 2001 and authorized a number of federal programs aiming to improve the performance of all U.S. primary and secondary schools by increasing the standards for accountability. The legislation was designed to achieve 100% proficiency by the year 2013. It may seem as if this legislation would be beneficial to the education system. However, it has produced a number of problems. It is my contention that the No Child Left Behind Act is failing those in the education system. I will explore my claim by focusing on how the legislation, 1, harms the students' progress in education, 2, uses the achievement gap to label certain schools as failures, and 3, punishes the teachers that simply just want to help students learn. First of all, there is a major concern over what No Child Left Behind lacks. The legislation, without a doubt, harms students' progression in education. The Act shines a spotlight on students' inequalities and takes note of performance by race and class. Those who need special attention, such as special education students and English learners, are harmed most of all by the standardized tests. Students are not being taught the correct curriculum and are constantly being challenged to meet the target for each school year. Duke Hartford and Doug Smith from the Los Angeles Times reported that thousands of schools still face trouble. A recent report found that 67% of California's public schools would fail to meet their target next spring. It said that 76% would fall short by 2008 and 99% would miss the mark by 2013. The legislation is too wrapped up in improving standardized tests that it forgets what is really important. Teachers need to be able to focus on what students really need to learn and not just what are going to appear on the test. In its implementation of testing and accountability, it was found that No Child Left Behind does not include all of the core subjects. For example, Eric Kortz, who studied education in the age of testing and accountability, established that although the legislation specifies history, geography, civics and government, and economics as core subjects, it does not include social studies as an area to be tested. Since the law passed, it was revealed that what gets tested is what gets taught. If social studies is among the few core subject areas that is not included in the standardized test, then less and less social studies will be taught in schools. If the education system continues at this rate, then students will be missing out on vital information. Secondly, the Act uses the achievement gap to label schools as failures that do not test as well as others. Many have complained that the federal legislation, No Child Left Behind, has created huge administration and logistical problems for numerous school districts. According to Susie Burrows, who has also studied education in the age of testing and accountability, claims that No Child Left Behind has been accused of being a rigid, bureaucratic, underfunded mandate built on a system of punishment. The key characteristic of the legislation is that students and their families have been given the option to depart from schools that have been labeled failures. If a school is labeled failures, they can transfer to a different school. This element instigated a frenzy of transfer students that school districts were not always capable of accommodating. Lastly, the standardized tests not only harm the students, but also harm the teachers. The fact that the legislation is severely underfunded discourages the teachers and punishes those who chose to work in the under-resourced schools. Those who work in the schools just want to make a difference in their students' lives. However, the students are no longer receiving the proper education. After she left the government, Susan Newman, a former top Bush education official, claimed the impetus for change built into No Child Left Behind was to effectively shame schools into improvement. Teachers are being shamed into teaching their students what will appear on the test. Harvard University professor Daniel Kortz, a leading test researcher who wrote to NIA Today magazine, explained, if you focus on teaching kids to correctly answer problems that use a particular question format and only cover a narrow range of skills, students will do better and better. That is, only until someone asks them questions in a different way. By looking at the standardized test from this point of view, students are only be giving temporary knowledge. Very little of it is retainable. Due to the fact that teachers can no longer introduce the areas of knowledge that will benefit their students in the future, many have chose to find other professions and leave the public school system. With that said, it is clear to see that the legislation was originally designed to improve scores on standardized tests, but there have been many other outcomes. Schools are too focused on receiving good grades that teachers can no longer focus on the important aspects of education. Since the law has passed, certain scores on standardized tests have indeed improved, but that itself is not success. Expecting 100% proficiency places unnecessary stress and is an intangible goal. After everything I've covered tonight, I hope that you will stand by me when I claim that instead of moving forward, the No Child Left Behind Act is failing the education system.